The divorce papers felt like a final verdict. My husband, calm and smug, signed every line without a second thought. "This is fair," he said, his voice steady, eyes gleaming with the satisfaction of someone who thought they'd won. What he didn't realize was that fairness in his mind was defined by what he could see, what he could touch, what he thought had value. He took the house, the one I had renovated, designed, and made a home. He took the cars, the savings, even the furniture I had painstakingly chosen over the years. He walked away with the perception of victory, unaware that the world I had quietly built outside his notice was far larger than the walls he now called his own. I watched him leave that day, holding nothing but a smug sense of accomplishment, while I packed the things I needed most, my laptop, my notes, my designs, and my ambition. Friends offered temporary shelter, but more importantly, I carried my own vision. I had built a life that wasn't just dependent on walls, money, or possessions. I had built a life rooted in skill, intellect, and foresight. Hey, if you enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the bell. Your support means everything and helps me keep creating. Thank you so much. For months, I kept to myself, focusing on projects he would have dismissed as trivial. Freelance work, side investments, networking with people who valued talent over title. Every small success was a quiet reminder that what he had thought he'd taken was only a fraction of what I truly owned. And then, one morning, I looked at the accounts he thought were gone, the contracts he believed were meaningless, and smiled. He had taken everything he could see, but he had no idea what he was really taking with him. Because while he had focused on material possessions, he had ignored the one thing no court could ever divide, the blueprint of a life I had built in secret, one that would make everything he claimed mine pale in comparison. And what I did next changed everything. In the weeks after the divorce, I worked quietly, deliberately. I rebuilt a life not dependent on him, a life that leveraged everything he had ignored. While he celebrated his win, I focused on growth, financial, personal, and professional. I reached out to trusted contacts, people who recognized potential rather than titles, and began piecing together ventures that would have seemed unimaginable during our marriage. I opened an account under my new name and began consolidating small investments I had tucked away, stocks, intellectual property, and creative projects he had dismissed as hobbies. I rented a modest office, hired a few brilliant freelancers, and started building a brand that combined design, strategy, and tech. Every day, every decision was a step towards something he could never see, something entirely untouchable. Months passed. My ex sent occasional messages, smug and condescending, commenting on what he thought was my struggle. "You'll never recover," he said in one text. "You're starting from scratch." I didn't respond. I smiled instead because I knew the truth. I was not starting from scratch. I was starting from a foundation he had never even imagined existed. By the end of the year, small ventures had grown into contracts with clients he had only ever dreamed of reaching. My ideas, once dismissed, were now sought after, respected, and profitable. I had leveraged creativity, strategy, and foresight into something tangible. While he counted furniture and cars as victory, I had built influence, wealth, and credibility. And then came the moment he realized the depth of his miscalculation. A mutual contact, someone who had once worked for both of us, mentioned my name in a high-stakes meeting. His eyes widened, disbelief overtaking him as the room buzzed with admiration for work he had assumed was mine. He had assumed taking my house, my cars, my savings meant he had taken my world. He hadn't taken a thing. In the months that followed, I quietly expanded further, investments, partnerships, and even real estate. Projects he thought would require my presence now flourished under my control. I had made something far larger than anything he could claim. Every property he thought belonged to him Every asset he imagined he controlled was overshadowed by networks, systems, and ventures he could never touch. It wasn't revenge. It was inevitability. Every step he had dismissed as unimportant, every detail he had ignored, became a building block in an empire he could never comprehend. And all the while, I watched him stumble through his hollow victories, unaware that what he had truly lost was far greater than any item the court could assign. He had taken everything he could see, but he hadn't touched the one thing that mattered: my mind, my foresight, my ambition. The life he believed he had conquered, I had already rebuilt stronger, smarter, and untouchable. And when the day came that he finally understood the scale of what he had lost, it was already too late. My success was no longer a secret, but a force beyond his reach, a life built quietly, patiently, and entirely on my own terms. The day he realized the truth came quietly. He called, smug and casual, expecting the usual tension and unease. Instead, he was met with calm authority. I invited him to my office, not out of arrogance, but because it was the first time he would see the life he thought he had dismantled fully and undeniably in motion. He stepped into the space and froze. The walls were lined with awards, framed contracts, and proof of ventures he hadn't even imagined. Screens displayed analytics, deals, and progress updates he didn't understand. Clients he assumed were loyal to him greeted me by name, offering respect and partnership while he lingered awkwardly in the doorway. He looked around, disbelief growing as I explained in measured tones what I had built in his absence. A company thriving on ideas he had once dismissed, investments growing faster than anything he had anticipated, partnerships forming that gave me influence he could never hope to wield. Every word I spoke, every detail I revealed, chipped away at the arrogance he had carried into the divorce. He opened his mouth, tried to interrupt, to argue, to claim something, anything, but I calmly reminded him of the truth. He had taken everything he could see, yes, but he had no control over my vision, my skill, or my ambition. I had built what no court could divide, what no signature could surrender, and what no possession could replace. He had expected weakness, desperation, and compliance. What he faced instead was mastery, precision, and independence. His confidence faltered further as I outlined projects underway, partnerships secured, and ventures launched, all in domains he had scoffed at, believing they were trivial or insignificant. The empire I had quietly cultivated now dwarfed anything he had claimed as victory. At last, he understood his win had been a hollow one. He had traded temporary satisfaction for permanent underestimation. What he had truly lost, my creativity, my vision, my resilience, was beyond recovery. And in that moment, I saw the same shock and awe that I had long imagined. The parents and husband who once mocked me, dismissed me, and thought themselves triumphant were now confronted with the full force of what they had underestimated. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Their silence said it all. I had proven without violence or spite that true power isn't measured by what others can take from you, but by what you quietly create, protect, and grow on your own. When I left that day, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: complete freedom. The life he thought he had claimed,